Good evening, everyone. Am I on? Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. This is the time and place set for the July meeting, regular meeting of the Royal Oak Planning Commission. Welcome everyone back to the new building here. This is the first time I've been here for a meeting, and it's terrific. So I'm glad to see everybody. I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll introduce ourselves starting with Mr. Klooster.
Eric Klooster. Woody Gantino.
Charlene Douglas, City Commissioner.
I'm Gary Casada.
Tim Twain, Community Development Director.
Ian Marquez with the City Attorney's Office.
And Ann and Paul, in order, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Ann speaking. And Paul Curtis. How can you hear us, okay?
We can hear you. So let me address that immediately. I haven't done one of these live meetings before, and I haven't done one with people on the phone before. So what we have is we have all of 6 commissioners present. The mayor's not here. 2 of the folks are on the phone, Ann Beakey and Paul Curtis, so we'll be hearing from them, and I'll be calling on them remotely. Otherwise, the meeting will proceed as you're used to seeing. I'd like to remind everybody about the decorum. We're going to have a proceeding here where everybody's going to get a chance to speak in turn, and for the same length of time. If you're in the audience, if you're a petitioner, we're going to entertain the discussion, a lively discussion with you. Please, you know the rules. Please turn your cell phones off. Keep your conversations to a minimum when we're proceeding. And when you're called, if you're in the audience, we'll call you. We'll come up. Introduce yourself. You'll have, if you're not a petitioner, if it's a public speaking, you'll have 3 minutes, and those are the rules. So we'll get going with the first question is, are there any additions to the agenda? Ann. Are there any additions to the agenda?
This is Ann. I would like to add the master plan. I would just like to hear what the general calendar is going to be for that, because I understand it's approved from City Commission a budget for hiring a consultant. Thank you.
All right. I'd like we put that at the end of the meeting. I would also like to add a discussion of the procedures for ongoing. This is a meeting. This is our first in-person meeting. We have a couple people on the phone. I'd like to add an agenda discussion of how we're going to proceed in the months to come. We'll put that at the end. Okay. First order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes for June 8th, 2021. If you had a chance to review those, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Support.
All right. Any discussion? All right. I'll call for the vote, starting with Mr. Klooster.
Yes.
Mr. Cantina.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Ann Beakey.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis. Mr. Curtis, are you muted, or are you... Can you hear us, Mr. Curtis?
You're talking to me. I'm having a hard time understanding your words here. The audio is not great. What'd you say?
We're voting on the approval of the June meeting minutes.
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. So the meeting minutes are approved for the June 8th meeting. Next order of business will be public comment on non-agenda items. Are there members of the audience who would like to speak on a non-agenda item tonight? If you would like to speak, raise your hand and we'll call you up. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment on non-agenda items. And we'll go to the next order of business, new business. It's a public hearing, conditional rezoning from a one-family residential in the overlay district to a mixed-use 1. And this is for 503 North Washington. Mr. Twain, can you give us a review?
Yes, I'll do it very briefly. The site is on North Washington, as you indicated, basically at the northwest corner of Park in North Washington. The site is developed with a two-story building that was originally constructed as a single-family dwelling. It was later converted to office and commercial uses with some parking lot out back. The property is zoned one-family residential overlay district, with the underlying zoning being one-family residential. But in the overlay district, multifamily and commercial uses that existed when the overlay district was created back in 2001 are considered conforming uses. So the use of that space as a commercial use, as previously indicated, was considered a use that was not non-conforming. The petitioner is proposing to demolish the existing building, and as you indicated, construct one new building that would have 3 townhouse-style dwelling units. The building height would be approximately 29 feet, 2 inches. And each dwelling unit would have 3 levels. As I indicated, it would be a townhouse style. Parking would be accessed off the back or west side where the public alley comes in, obviously opposite North Washington, with sidewalks heading out to the Washington frontage. The site plan is on the screen if you're interested. What I'll cover briefly are the deviations from the zoning ordinance that the Planning Commission needs to deal with as part of the conditional rezoning request. The first is in regards to minimum lot area or density. The site itself is some 6,600 square feet. For 3 dwelling units, the zoning ordinance would require 12,000 square feet. So there is that deviation of between what's required under the ordinance at 12,000 square feet and what actually exists at 6,600. The second one is in regards to setbacks. The north side yard setback is indicated at 5 feet. The general requirement is 10. All the other setbacks are compliant with the 10-foot requirement. There is a minimum screening between the land uses. It is provided, or a 6-foot high wall screen fence is provided along the north side until you get to the front line of the proposed unit, and then there's no additional screening from there to North Washington. Generally speaking, the ordinance would talk about a 30-inch high green belt wall or fence. None is proposed. The last screening item technically is required along the alley to the west, obviously with 3 driveways coming in to serve the units and the garages. The petitioner has not proposed any along that west portion. Those are the deviations that the Planning Commission could consider or should consider as part of this conditional use request or rezoning request. I think I'll stop my presentation or overview there and see if there's any questions.
Are there questions for Mr. Twing? Ann or Paul? Okay, I have a couple quick ones.
I don't have any questions. It's very difficult to hear.
Well,
I don't have any questions either, but it is more than difficult to hear. It is pretty terrible for hearing.
so
I
just,
don't think I could participate in the discussion based on this audio.
all right, I have a question for the technician here, whoever it is the audio feed that Ms. Beakey and Mr. Curtis are hearing coming through that phone?
I believe so, yes. I'm not sure they have the live stream on or whether they have the phone on.
Okay, but my voice is broadcast up here, so it wouldn't help if I moved over there, I take it.
No.
All right. Any suggestions from anybody?
Are able to watch it live stream.
Okay. Hey, Ann and Paul, did you try to put it on the live stream? Maybe you can hear it that way and then make your comments.
Yeah, I have a live stream on, but we were told to mute it so that it wouldn't interfere with this, but I guess I can mute this and turn that on.
Yeah, I think let's do it that way.
Delay, but
Even if it's delayed, you'll hear me asking you if you have any comments. I hope.
okay, I'll switch to the live stream and I'll mute the phone unless I'm speaking.
Okay, and Paul, please try the same. Okay.
May I also say something about the live stream? I've turned it on, and it's such a delay between what I'm hearing in my ears from the phone and what the live stream is. There's got to be at least a 60-second delay, so it's impractical to try to participate with that method.
Well, I think that's what we have. So what I'll do, like I say, I will ask for your comments. You'll have to mute your outgoing microphone while you're watching, and hopefully, even with the delay, you can contribute. All right. Well, we'll proceed here. I have a couple questions for Mr. Twing just for understanding. The single-family residential medium density is the future land use for this area, correct?
Yes.
So there isn't really, I'm not 100% sure what that is, just for the record. Medium density, does that have to do with the lot size? What is the medium density?
Generally, it talks about a certain number of units, and generally I would say 3 to 6 units would fall into medium density.
3 to 6 units on a property?
On a property, on a development.
Okay, so single-family residential, I'm thinking that's separate, standalone residential buildings, but no.
Right.
But I'm just trying to understand the future land use, because I think it's pertinent to the issue. That
Right. Well, single-family residential medium density is smaller lot sizes than...
Okay,
Right.
smaller lot sizes. Okay, that's
Right.
what I want to clarify.
Yeah.
The other thing is under paragraph 4, you have a comment here, the staff has a comment. I just want to clarify. It says this is one new building with 3 multiple family dwellings. Is it 3 multiple family dwellings or 3 single family dwellings in one building, is your understanding?
Well, it's one building with 3 units in it.
Okay, so there would be presumably three families. Okay, very good. That's what I want to understand. All right, is the petitioner present? Please come up to the microphone, identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Richard Marino. I'm with Live All Custom Homes. And before I start this, I'd like to explain how this all came about.
All right.
I'm constructing a home in the rear presently. And as I started constructing that home, the 2 neighbors to the north of me that share the alley had come to me and asked me, what are you going to do with this alley? And I basically told them I'm not doing anything with it because I was going to service that single family home with its own driveway. So they basically asked me if I could pave it. And I basically told them I couldn't pave it. It wasn't in my budget. So the whole purpose of this, of me being here, is to try to create a win-win for my neighbors and basically myself. They're in a very unique situation because there's 2 houses and then the alley just dead ends into the school. If I build a single family home there, I'm going to enter off a park, and that alley, they're going to be in limbo for a little while. So, when I proposed, I went to my neighbors first before I came here, and I've got the support of the neighbors to the north and to the south of me. When I designed the units, I tried to keep them as residential as looking as possible. They are planned to be 3 separate condo units that are going to be single family, that are going to be sold. It's not rental. I completely understand some of the concerns as far as the of the variances I'm going to need. You know, if it was a bigger project, I could understand the, you know, a lot of these variances I'm requesting for. But since it's a smaller project, I felt I tried to just create a win-win in it. I do want to point out that, you know, immediately to the south of me is a three-bedroom apartment complex. Behind me in kitty corner is a two-unit apartment complex, and across the street from me is an 8-unit. So it is a mixed bag in here, and when we designed it, again, we really tried to make it as residential as possible, and when we blended it, tried to blend it in. As far as the variance requests, you know, the biggest one is, you know, is 3 units needing 12,000 square feet. I'm virtually half of that. I understand that's a big ask, but in return, that extra unit is basically going to pay the paving of the alley, which will technically benefit my neighbors. My neighbors. As far as the north lot line variance request, if I built a single-family home, I could be as close as 5 feet from that lot line. I have talked with the owner next door, and you know, he's asked me to put up a vinyl fence, and I've agreed to put a vinyl fence. The only thing he didn't ask me is I wouldn't pass the front of his house. That I would go from the front of his house backwards. That I wouldn't go all the way along the lot line, which was fine with me. Other than that, you know, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for the petitioner? I'm going to give Ann and Paul a minute or two there to process the video. I have a question for Mr. Twing. Is that correct? If this was a single-family home instead of 3 units, the setback would be 5 feet to the north?
Yes.
All right. I have a question about the driveway. You mentioned that you are building the home just to the west of this building,
Yes.
and you've got the driveway there.
Yes.
How is the alley and the driveway going to interface there? Is everything? Give me a explanation.
As it stands now, it's dirt.
Right.
If I do nothing, it's going to stay as dirt. What I would, if I did it, I would slope the alley in the middle so that we'd have drainage out there, and it most likely would butt up to the other driveway.
Okay, to the new driveway that
To
you
the
just
new
poured.
driveway that we installed, yes.
Okay, but it would shed water out to Park.
Yes, there is, the engineering department required me to put a catch basin. There's a new catch basin in that alley that wasn't there before. There is, you know, that was required of me when I built the house. So there's a catch basin in that alley. By me paving it, I would improve it, and it would benefit the 2 people to the north of me.
Okay, I missed that when I was out there. So there's a catch basin in the dirt alley right now?
Yes, it's probably covered with a little dirt.
Okay. All right, Ann or Paul, or do you have any questions for the petitioner?
I have a
I do
question.
not, thank you.
We'll go Ann first.
I was wondering if in the alley there's a consideration to use permeable pavers. It would be beneficial to us to have demonstration projects of the value of permeable pavers, and whether that was considered.
Good question. The answer is I didn't consider that. The big concern I received from the neighbors was in the wintertime, they have a tough time getting in and out of their driveways. I could look into that, but to be honest with you, I didn't consider it until you mentioned it.
All right. Would you consider it?
I would consider it as long as my costs aren't doubled.
Okay.
If it's somewhere in the near, cost-wise, I'd have no problems doing that.
All right. I don't think we can, because it's conditional rezoning, we can't make suggestions, but I bring it up in front of everybody because we'd like people to consider those things when they're developing properties.
I'd understand that it would be more beneficial, especially that particular area being all sand and the stormwater absorbing into the sand. I completely understand. It's a very reasonable request.
All right. Any other questions, Mr. Gantina?
So along those same lines, are there any sustainability practices that you've included in the project that we may not be aware of that you may want to highlight? We just talked about the permeable pavers in the alley. You'd mentioned you hadn't considered those. Are there any other design considerations that you would like to highlight that you haven't?
Well, on the energy side, the home is actually engineered through a company called Nelson Energy, so it's extremely efficient. We've kept our hard driveways to a minimum, and we've left a lot of green belt, we believe, between the driveways to absorb some of the water too. But the homes are above state requirements as far as energy efficiencies.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, well, I will bring it over to this side of the table for a discussion. Public hearing, sorry. It's a public hearing, so are there members of the public who would like to comment on this project?
Is that mic live? Doesn't sound like.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If you could introduce yourself.
My name is Tom Howlett. Good evening, Commissioner.
How are you doing?
Chairman, and the rest of the board. I'm here to oppose this project. I did not learn about it until yesterday. I went out through the neighborhood. There is no support anywhere near from our neighborhood association. Everybody we spoke with was opposed to it. The neighbors that he refers to, I spoke with both of them, and actually they don't support it. They just simply don't feel like getting into a fight with the city in the middle with this developer. We object to this proposed multi-family conditional rezoning. It violates the one-family residential overlay district, future land use map, and the master plan. Thousands of people spent countless hours to keep the neighborhood surrounding downtown a single family while preserving the rights of existing commercial and more than single family uses. The fact that a couple of neighbors don't object, which they're not really not objecting, is not a legal basis for rezoning, nor is the personal preferences of planning commissioners. The Zoning Board of Appeals just denied the variances of a proposed single-family use at 312 North Washington as being out of character, and excessive variances were required. The mover of 503 admits to too many variances, and this project simply doesn't belong here anyway because it's not a multifamily neighborhood. To deny a single family, but then approve a multifamily would be totally inconsistent and disrespectful to our neighborhood. One of the things that has not changed is the overlay district. We've been 20 years. It has not been a problem. The values of all the homes around have gone up significantly. There is absolutely no reason why this should be permitted to occur, especially when it's so crammed in. Let's face it, the bottom line, the reason why he wants to do this is because he can make a lot more money on a small lot. That's the only reason this is being proposed. So I would urge you to exercise your proper duties and reject this because it doesn't belong here. It hasn't belonged here for 20 years, and this is not started. We don't have a new master plan. We don't have anything new to indicate that all of a sudden this is okay. So don't let that door open, because if you let one in, you're going to let another one in, and another one, and another one, all contrary to our zoning and master plan. That is not proper planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public would like to speak on this issue? Please introduce yourself. You have 3 minutes.
Walter Ochelik. I might not need 3 minutes. I live just one street over on Center Street from the proposed building. I just, you know, I've got the benefit of one of the few double lots in that close proximity to downtown Royal Oak. And I mean, personally, for me, it would certainly be beneficial to if you allowed something like this to happen. I mean, financially, but I wouldn't want to do it to the neighbors. I see a lot of these bigger buildings, these towering places go up in, and it's aesthetically even. I don't think it's proper. But you know, unless you're going to go all the way and just let everybody do it, I just can't imagine a single variance. And again, I mean, for me, if that was part of the master plan, maybe, you know, and we knew that going in, okay, that would have been, well, it probably would have cost an awful lot more for my house. In fact, it probably wouldn't even be there. I'd be living in one of these. But just to be clear, I'm opposed to it. I'd rather just keep it single-family houses. And I kind of like the kind of funky, almost dumpy way that it is. I mean, we don't want to get to the point in Royal Oak where you're changing the character too much and sort of choke the life out of what we're all so fortunate to have, I think. I have seen that happen in other places. I've lived around the country. Portland and Seattle come to mind as a couple of those places that I've personally witnessed that. And I just thought it was very unfortunate. You know, you change the character too much to somebody, a new matrix of somebody's vision of what things should be, and by the time you run it out, you know, it's too late to do anything about it if you've realized you made a mistake. Bellevue, Washington, comes to mind. Beautiful place, manicured. It looked a lot like this. It wasn't always like that, but looking around for an apartment there, stopped by on a Sunday and you could almost fire a cannon down the street. It was just one of those places that wasn't fun anymore, I think, and everybody sort of drove in, turned around, and at 5 o'clock and went home to where they really felt comfortable. I'd kind of like to see that stay the same for Royal Oak, personally. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Perfect timing. How do you like that?
Please introduce yourself. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm Carrie Fox. I live at 419th North Center Street, and I'm opposed to this project as well. I think it's enough that every house we tear down becomes a Bigfoot. These are proposed as units that will be sold, but ultimately I believe they'll be rented out like everything else that is a multi-unit like that. It's more trash, it's more traffic, it's more people, it's congested already. And I'm just opposed, and to present this as a favor to the neighbors, in the famous words of Judge Judy, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this issue? All right. Seeing none, I'll close the public discussion. And now I'll bring it back to this side of the table for a discussion among the commissioners. Do we have any questions for Mr. Twing, the petitioner, or comments? Mr. Gantina.
So I guess I just have some comments. I struggle to support this project. While I support higher density this close to our downtown core, I believe the community's willingness to support that will be fleshed out with our master plan update. And so as we sit today, we have to go with sort of the rules that exist today. And I just think what's being proposed is as the variances would indicate, trying to maybe cram a little bit too much into this particular lot. Unfortunately, trying to get density in areas that are already developed can be very challenging sometimes, but in this particular case, I think the lot is one of the big challenges, and it's just trying to force too much onto it. Clearly, the neighborhood has some strong feelings around the project as well, and typically when a conditional rezoning or other acts like this are being requested, there is a community benefit that is typically proposed. The applicant has discussed the paving of the alley being a community benefit, but really for me that's more of a private benefit for a few landowners adjacent to that alley. And quite frankly, it doesn't rise enough to be considered a community benefit on my part. So I will be voting to deny this.
All right, any other comments? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There are 9 criteria that we consider in evaluating conditional rezoning. And there are a couple that jump out, particularly with this project. One is that the requested zone should be consistent with the goals, policies, and future land use map of the master plan. I do not find this use to be consistent with any of those characteristics. And another one is the evidence should document that the applicant cannot receive a reasonable return on investment through developing the property with one or more of the principal permitted and special land uses under the current zoning. When projects like this come before me, I look for evidence that they cannot receive a reasonable return on their investment, and yet I look at the single-family unit that the developer is building adjacent to this property. I look at the proposed development across the street that the zoning board did restrain, but still there is demand in this corridor for single-family housing, and I suspect that the applicant could receive a reasonable return on their investment. So there are other conditions, as I say, there are 9 total conditions that we look at, but those 3 jump out at me as a reason to not approve this project.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the commission? How about Ann or Paul? Oh, Mr. Klooster.
Yeah, I want to voice kind of a similar messaging to some of the other planning commissioners. I think as a board, we've been very encouraging towards density. I think this is a Is that any better? No. Okay, I think I got a dead mic.
I do too.
Mine's live.
Mine's dead.
Try the one next to you.
Thank you.
Oh.
How about now? There you go. All right. To recap, I think as a commission we've generally been encouraging towards density and exploring different avenues to achieving density. I think this is one of those potential type units where you might see a better fit in kind of that transition from higher density downtown areas to lower density single family areas where you'd see brownstone developments, duplexes, triplexes, etc. Generally, I am encouraging of this type of development in this type of area. That being said, our master plan and our current zoning doesn't support that. And I would like to see developments like this that are proposed in the area start to come on board as part of a master planning process where we engage the community through community outreach programs and we get the community to contribute to what the master plan for this city looks like. I think this is asking for a lot that is contrary to what we're currently showing. I would like to see things like this happen in the future once that master planning effort takes place.
All right, thank you. Now let's try Ann again. Ann, any comments?
You hear me?
Yes. We hear more than just you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my inclination is difficult to hear the whole conversation, but I'm inclined to say no at this time for this, given the single-family zoning, and there's not sufficient benefit, I think, that outweighs that single-family zone, and I'll leave it to that for now.
Okay, how about Mr. Curtis?
If that's to me, I don't have anything to add than what I've heard from other commissioners on the topic. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, is there any other discussion or motion at this point?
This is a recommendation to the city commission. So
This is for a conditional rezoning, yes?
yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah, is this working? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so I'm going to move that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Commission deny the proposed conditional rezoning.
Is there a second?
Support.
Support from Mr. Gardentina. Is there further discussion from the commissioners, question for the petitioners, or for Mr. Twing?
I'm assuming it's for all the reasons that have been stated.
Yes.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to call for the vote, and I'm going to start with Mr. Klooster.
Yes.
Mr. Gardentina.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Ms. Beakey.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the motion to deny the recommendation, or to
Deny
not
the
recommend, deny the request for recommendation is passed. Thank you, sir. All right, the next item on the agenda is the special land use and site plan, SP 210710. This is the property at 25519 Woodward Avenue. Mr. Twing.
I'll have it up here in 2 seconds. This property is on the southwest side of Woodward Avenue, between West Harrison and basically the Detroit Zoo. It was most recently developed with a one-story building and recently occupied with a resale clothing shop with an off-street parking lot to the south. The petitioner is proposing to occupy the existing building with a daycare center. There are really no changes proposed to the existing building other than interior renovations, removal of a canopy in the northeast front facade, and the installation of a gate and the screening wall for the main entrance. It is zoned mixed use too. Daycare centers are a special land use in that zoning district. A couple of the items related to the proposed site plan that you can see on the screen. The existing driveway width out to Woodward Avenue in this area down here, if you can see the cursor, is some 52 feet in width. The maximum allowed under the zoning ordinance is 30 feet. So both the planning division and engineering division are recommending that that be narrowed to approximately 25 feet. In this case, to not allow vehicles to come into cars that might be parked, so it's a little narrower than what would be 30. So that basically it lines up with the maneuvering drive aisle. Daycare centers are required to have one parking space for every 350 square feet. That would require 10 for this site. They do have 12, so they are in compliance. They are also required to have outside play areas at some 500 square feet. While there's none proposed on the private property, there is a public alley to the west that has been enclosed and used as outside area under a license agreement. The petitioner is proposing to convert that to the play area, and that would be some 2,400 square feet in total, so it does exceed it. But that would require a license agreement approved by the commission for that use. There are no changes proposed to landscaping or other items. The last item I will point out in the staff report is the existing sign that's on site. The freestanding pole sign does not comply with sign ordinance requirements, and they'll either need to seek a variance to get that sign to remain, or it'll have to be removed to come in compliance when they apply for sign permits. The associated site plan, I think I've touched on all of the issues that are also included in the site plan memo. As I said, this is a special land use under mixed use 2, so you'll have 2 actions in this case. The first being action on the special land use permit request, and then the second on the site plan.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Twing? All right, I have a couple just quick clarifications. The 2 issues there that are that you brought up, the license for the alleyway, that's something that's a contingency for the site plan. That's not, doesn't factor into the special land use, I assume.
That's correct.
And same with the sign.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Is the petitioner present? Please introduce yourself and tell us about your proposal.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Bowles. I'm the Executive Director of a preschool at 425 Woodward Avenue, the property right before the Detroit Zoo, where we have a preschool. And it's growing. We currently have a wait list for one classroom of 30 kids and a wait list for the other classroom for 25 kids. So our landlord is the person who also owns this, the Pose, and we've been discussing the possibility of renting this property that's been vacant for quite some time. So we're working on this together to see if we can expand into this building.
All right, you'd be operating the same, it's the same company that'd be operating this one?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay, questions for the petitioner? All right. Ann, any questions?
Not at this time.
Mr. Curtis, any questions? Hope you can hear me. Mr. Curtis? All right, I'm going to assume none. All right, this is a public hearing, so we'll see if there's public comment on this. Is anybody in the audience who'd like to speak on this issue?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jeffrey Poe. I'm appearing on behalf of Poe Associates, which is the owner of this building, and also Ms. Bowles, landlord for the 2547 building that she currently leases from us. I'd just like to clarify one thing for the Commission, that there is a licensing agreement in effect for the public alley to the west of the building that was entered into between us and the city in 2014. The Commission should also note that that part of the alley along Woodward there has never been opened for any kind of public use or through use ever since it was dedicated. We maintain insurance on it, and it's been maintained by us or our tenants for as long as I've been there, which is over 50 years. So I just want to make sure the Commission was aware that that requirement in terms of play space, I don't see that as being any kind of an issue for Ms. Bowles or the city or for us.
All right.
Any questions that I can answer for anybody?
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, any other members of the public like to speak on this agenda item?
Good evening. My name is Gordon Rubin. I reside at 25500 York Road in Royal Oak. The reason I'm here tonight is I oppose this type of business going in behind my home because it's going to cause a lot of confusion and noise. Therefore, I submitted a letter to City Hall several days ago. I don't know if you received it, but I've got a copy of the letter, and can I present it to you?
Sure.
It is attached to the agenda at the end of the packet.
Thank you. So this is already part of the record?
It's
There it is.
part of the
Okay,
agenda
very
packet.
good. Thank you. We just made double sure. Okay, you may continue.
And so therefore, I lived in my home for 29 years. I've never had any problem with the prior tenants that were there. I understand there's about 14 parking places there, and I was told that one of the parking lots was deeded from the state of Michigan to the city of Royal Oak. I don't know if this is true or not. You would have to do some investigation. What I'd like to know is how many children are going to be at this location? And is it the same party that has a location down the street south of there? Okay? I'd like to know the hours of operation and what days a week. I don't need all this confusion and noise from the parking and crying of children and screaming in my backyard. My fence isn't high enough. If you approve this, I would suggest you tell the owners of the building to put an 8-foot fence up. It says in that letter that I gave you, at their own expense, at his or her own expense. I don't need this aggravation. This is terrible. There's like a 20 or 25 foot area back there, the width of it, and there's a 60 feet long. And can you imagine all the commotion with swings and everything else? If you lived there, I don't think you would like it. So I'm totally opposed to what's going on.
All right, thank you.
And one other thing, you can tell the owners of the building that that they should rent it out to something else other than a child care center. This building has 3,604 square feet. And can you imagine all the commotion that's going to be going on there? And there's another parking lot on the other side, north of there. I don't know who owns that. So there's going to be 2 parking lots filled with cars and people coming in the morning to drop off their children at 7 o'clock in the morning, horns going, doors closing. And I live right there. I never had any problem with any of the tenants prior.
Okay, thank you. Your
thank
time is
you.
up. Thanks. All right. Any other? There you go.
Good evening. My name is Matt Badrak. I'm actually the designer of record on this project. I would like to just clarify a few things about this property here. Along the back property line, there's a 6-foot high fence for the majority of the property. The remaining roughly 20 feet, so it's a 60-foot wide lot. The remaining space is an 8-foot high fence. They're all wood fences. They've been identified on the drawing, on the site plan there, as to what they look like. The parking lot to the south here is a parcel that is part of this property. So it is an on-site parking lot that's allowed per this use. The parking lot to the north is a city-owned property that shares between other facilities up there, other retail spaces. This is similar to the other building they have, just one door down. This one is primarily for preschool students, so about 3 years old, 4-year-old. The play area in back, based on this program, is a natural play area, so that contains not your traditional swing sets, teeter-totters, not that kind of stuff. It's a natural setup. So there'll be stepping stones, there'll be logs, there will be many things that they can, that are more natural, more characteristic of what you would see in the natural environment, in the woods, essentially. So there's not that typical sort of play space, playscape that's usually associated with playgrounds. The area of the property, yes, there is approximately 10 feet of property from the back of the building to the property line, which does have some green space there. But in addition to, as Mr. Twing had mentioned, they actually require 1,200 square foot of play area, and that space that we have there only provides 846. So the existing alley, which currently is grass, plantings, borders, trees, would be used to increase the area to the 2,400 square feet. So I just wanted to point out some of those items there for clarity's sake.
Thank you. You're the petitioner, so you don't have to be on the 3-minute clock. In fact, I think the 3 of you are the petitioner team, and we should probably have had a clarification at the beginning. Any other members of the public who are not on the petitioner team? There you go.
Before you start the clock, I just want to
please
compliment you
yourself.
on the beautiful building.
Oh.
My compliments to the city as well as the commission. Enjoy it. In any event.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm so sorry?
Please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Martin Weinberg. I live at 25590 York Road, which is approximately 5 houses north of the proposed site. I have a few questions, if I may. Currently, it was stated that they have enough room for 30 children and then perhaps another 25. The building that they're thinking about renting is approximately 3 to 4 times the size of the current building they're in. Will there be a limitation to how many children they may have as clients, I guess, or what have you? At this point, the area behind the building right now, obviously, as it was stated, is not all that large. And if they currently can house 50 children in the property that they're already in next to the zoo, this piece of property being 3 times as large should be able to house 150 children. We're talking several classfuls of elementary school classes that we were all in. In many cases, the children, all well-behaved and chaperoned, are walking through the neighborhood with 2 to 3 adults from the school. I'm presuming they're going to the park, the public park owned by the city of Royal Oak on the next block on Dundee. If all I've seen thus far is maybe 6 to 8 children chaperoned, but if it gets to the point where they can have 100 children and walk through there and utilize the park, which is basically for our grandchildren and, my neighbor's children and so on, while they are in a business to make profit, utilizing public services. The other question is when they're walking with the children on the sidewalks in front of our house, again, chaperoned, well-behaved. They have stopped, sat down right on the sidewalk, whether to reprimand children or hold a class for moments. Whose liability is it if the children trip and fall on the sidewalk? Is it mine? Is it the city's? Excuse me. As I said, right now all I've seen are 6 to 8. What will be the limit? Will there be 100? There has to be some type of a limitation. The other question that arises is the parking lots on each side of the building, the public parking lots. Will there be any provisions where they have too many children to utilize this 864 square foot play area behind the building, where they could put up temporary cones or something and begin to use that as an outdoor play area? I just would like a little clarification. Again, it seems to be very well run. My compliments to that. And the Poets have taken care of the property up and down the neighborhood magnificently. I just would like a little clarification.
Okay, thank you.
I can speak to these questions when it's my turn.
Yes. Hold on. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? All right. Seeing nobody else, why don't we bring the petitioner back up?
Sure.
Close the hearing.
We'll close the public part of the hearing. So you heard some of the questions.
Yes.
How many kids are you planning on having? How many kids are you allowed to have? There was what are your hours of operation? Why don't you speak to those things?
Yeah, the hours of operation are easy. We open at 8 a.m. and in the past, pre-COVID, the last child's out the door at 6 p.m. Our main hours of operation are 9 to 3, but we have before care and after care. So the result of that is that we don't tend to have like masses of people. There's a little bump at about 9 in the morning, and there's another one at about 3 o'clock. Our current parking lot is smaller. People come in for maybe 20 minutes of the day, drop their children off, and then leave. And then the same thing happens at pickup. They come in, they pick up their children, and they leave. So, there's not a lot. It's not a high traffic kind of situation. So there's that. As far as numbers, I believe there's a little bit of a misunderstanding because we don't have 50 children in our program now. That's how large our waiting list is. So we're licensing it's based on how much space you have. So there's only ever so many children you can have at one time in your building, and that's a known fact, and it's based on square footage. So when you look at our plans for this new building, it lists on there exactly how many children we plan to have. So
and what number is that for the record?
The 12 and...
The max we can have in the building based on square footage is 45 students.
So 45. So part of what makes this arrangement tempting for me, because the POs have been saying, like, hey, why don't you rent this building? It's empty, is the idea that our program is a special kind of program. It's called Reggio Emilia approach to preschool education, but it's typically very expensive to run because rather than having X amount of square feet and you have a child for however many square feet you have, our desire is to have several spaces that those children can occupy. So if you look at this plan, there's a piazza in the middle. There's a classroom for 4-year-olds, and there's a classroom for 3-year-olds, and there's an art area, art studio. So a traditional preschool would say that that's 4 different classrooms. But what we're proposing is 2 classrooms, and the children from those classrooms go different places in the building. So, if we didn't have this relationship with our landlord, that would be cost prohibitive because nobody's renting a child care center to have 1/3 of the amount of kids that you could have in that building. So the neighbors, concern that perhaps there could be all these masses of children in there, I could understand why he's saying that because it's a large building. So our current classroom, the preschool classroom, is 16. It's licensed for 19. We've only ever had 16 in there. And the infantile room is licensed for 12, and we currently have 10. So it's endemic of what we want to do with this new building. There's so many children that can't access our program, but we're only looking to have 2 more classes. And so what the gentleman is seeing with us going through the neighborhood, it's nice to know from from the neighbor's perspective that there are small groups of well chaperoned children going to the park occasionally, which is a public park, so it's open to anybody who wants to use it, but we're conscious of not bringing 100 people to the park at one time and flooding it, so.
Okay, but just for the record, so I understand, if under the licensing and regimen and the size of this building, you could have 45.
Yes.
So the other part of the question was, what are you planning on having?
45 or less, actually, because our younger class would have 12 and our older class would have 16, I think.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions for the petitioner as long as we have her back?
So it sounds like kids rotate through or doing different things at different times. So there's not, will there be a time when there are 45 kids in the outdoor play area?
No. No,
I mean, it'll be
don't.
pods of kids at different points in their day's activities, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Ann, any question for the petitioner?
No, thank you.
Paul, any question for the petitioner? I don't know if he's still there. Mr. Curtis, you still there? All right. All right. Mr. Gantino.
I do have a quick question for the applicant. So knowing that, excuse me, your other facility is just one door down or two buildings down, do you ever foresee the need for any of the students in either building to need to go back and forth between either of the buildings during the course of any given day, or are I guess the student populations within each building completely and wholly separate throughout the day and they would never traverse back and forth between the buildings?
I would say it wouldn't be typical.
All right, thank you. I have one more question. The current facility that you have and use, does that have an outdoor play area?
Yes, and we've been there 3 years playing outside. You do hear children playing, you know, like you hear them, but they're not screaming or...
Okay, but that's been there for some time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
We have good relationships with the neighbors that are currently behind us. We share the fence line with them.
All right. All right. Any other questions for the petitioner with the folks here? Okay. Public comment is closed, sir. Hearing none, let's bring it back to this side of the table for discussion or a motion from the commission. And Ann, if you want to pipe up, you're welcome to do so. All right, this, just a reminder, this is the special land use portion of the agenda item. Site plan will be next if this passes, so that's what's on the table. Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I'd like to move approval of the special land use, and I'll comment afterwards.
Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Klooster. And Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah, the use that's proposed here is very consistent with the zoning. I was pleased to hear just at the end there that you talked about your existing operation, which also has an outdoor play area. This appeals to me just because of really much of what we learned during COVID as parents' timetables have changed, as they're working from home, as they're having to go into the office. There's a need in the community for daycare and childcare, and I'm pleased to see that an operation is coming into our city that is going to help meet that need. And as I look at there are 7 criteria that, as in the previous item, 7 criteria that we consider in items like this, and I find that this proposal is consistent with all 7 of those criteria.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on this issue? Mr. Cantina.
I just want to make a few comments. Always supporting the project. It's unique that we have a template for the proposed project that exists just one door down, and it's essentially duplicating the same asks of the business that seems to be operating quite well and in harmony with the neighborhood. I certainly do hear and understand the concerns that some of the neighbors had raised with regards to commotion and noise. At the same time, I fully believe and expect that any noise that's generated from the children will be well within our noise ordinance and not be a disturbance to the surrounding properties, certainly not outside of traditional business hours. So for those reasons, I think Commissioner Douglas spoke to it well. There is a need for these facilities, as is evidenced by the wait list as well. So I'll be supporting this.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners? Any comment from Ms. Beakey?
Not at this time, thank you.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, at this point I will call for the vote, starting again with Mr. Klooster.
Yes.
Mr. Gantina.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes?
Ms. Beakey.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we have, Commission passes the grant of the special land use. At this point, we need to discuss the site plan. And I think there are some questions for that, so I'd like to...
Just for clarity, Mr.
Yes.
Curtis is not on the phone. Just, can we ask?
Mr. Curtis, are you there? No, I think he's gone.
All right, I'll record him as gone.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Twing. Where was I? Oh, special site plan. I would like to call the full team up to answer a couple questions, if you don't mind. Should have told you that in the first place, and we could have. So one of the questions I have is about the recommendation that the narrowing of the access of the driveway. Do you have any problem with that?
No, no problem.
Okay, and you understand what's
Yep.
being asked. And you also, you have any problem with any of the contingencies that we have listed in the packet, if you've looked at that?
Right. No, no issues.
All right, any other questions for the petitioners on the site plan from the commissioners? Ms. Beakey, we have the petitioner team up here, and if you have any questions for them regarding the site plan.
Not at this time, thank you.
All right. Okay. You can wait there just a second in case there's another question. But at this point, is there any further discussion or a motion on this site plan approval?
I will move to support or to approve the site plan with the contingencies listed.
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Klooster, support by Mr. Gantina. Any other discussion on this issue, question for the petitioners, or any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote, starting with Mr. Klooster.
Yes.
Mr. Gantina.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes?
Ms. Beakey, we're voting on the site plan at this point.
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. So the site plan is approved. Congratulations and good luck to you. Thank you. All right, next agenda item is a special land use and site plan for the Redcoat Tavern. So, Mr. Twing, tell us about this one. My mouse is a little bit sketchy.
A little bigger file. It's taking a minute to get up. Bear with me 2 seconds.
I don't know what's going on with my mouse here. There we go. That's why I have a printed book.
Yeah.
Bounces you back out.
Hmm?
I'm snagging this.
Oh.
Is this yours?
No, those are, I got to sign those at some point.
Okay. I'm using it.
Okay. I think Mr.
That's
Twing is
correct.
ready, yes.
Yep. As you did indicate, you do have a request in front of you from the Redcoat Tavern. They are proposing to demolish a portion of a building to their north which was previously an auto repair building, and construct an expansion to the restaurant, including an outdoor cafe. Basements also underneath that addition. In addition, there would be 7 angle parking spots to the north along the south portion of a remaining building that's also going to be used for storage. There would be 5 other parking spaces that are depicted on this plan, adjacent to the outdoor area. What I should also point out is the restricted residential parking lot that is to the east of the alley is also part of this site on Red Coat Tavern. The addition itself would be some 2,600 square feet in usable floor area, and would have about 445 square feet of cafe area. The addition in the cafe would require 4 and 7 off-street parking spaces respectively. The storage area would require 2. You will see in your packet kind of a breakdown of the existing requirements for parking, and then a breakdown of what would be required if you chose to approve the special land use. The site currently is 18 spaces short. With the addition, it would need a variance of 39 spaces based on that chart that you have in front of you. There are no changes proposed to the accessory parking lot that I referenced that's east of the public alley. What else can I touch on here? I guess a couple of the deviations or variances that you'd have to consider and grant permission for the petitioner to seek from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The first is related to the parking spots that are accessed off the public alley. That's approximately 48 feet in width in total. The maximum driveway width that the ordinance allows is 30 feet. So you would have to grant permission for them to seek a variance from the CBA for that item. One other clarity item, and as we indicated in the report, there is a 18-inch deciduous tree depicted on the plan, but it doesn't indicate whether it's to be removed or maintained. It's right in this area here.
Is that the one right on the corner of the building?
Yes.
All right.
And so we would want that clarified, and if it is to be removed, they would have to provide additional landscaping or funds in order to be compliant with the landscape section of the ordinance. That's kind of a summary of the proposal. I guess I'll get into the site plan memo when we get there.
All right. Thank you. And I want to thank the gentleman there for being the gendarme there. Thank you.
Sergeant at Arms.
Yes. All right. Is the petitioner available? Bring your whole team up. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your project. And
fortunately, I have a loud voice. Any noise in the background, I can talk over it. I'm Mike Gordon, the architect for the project. With me tonight, and here I know I got to go with the glasses, right? I'm representing the Red Coat Tavern. Matt Brown, the owner, is here tonight, and Matt Hatz, who is in charge of the construction of this project. As you're probably aware, the history of this restaurant was opened by his father in 1872. Obviously, it's a fixture in the community for a long time. By comparison, I've only been here 30 years, so I'm the youngster on the block. The proposal before you today is to expand the seating capacity of this successful restaurant. The expansion is long in coming, and the recent events of 2020 helped push this along. Now, I want to clarify, there is some reference to this being an outdoor facility. It's kind of a blending of the inside and outside. It is an enclosed facility. There's a half a dozen tables to the rear that are fully outside. So I just want to make sure that was clear to everyone. The need for more space has been evident for a long time, as anyone who tries to drop in for the best burger in town on a Friday night can testify. It's been amplified by the call for social distancing and the recent path of limited seating capacities that were imposed by the government. Even with capacity limits lifted as they are now, people are still cognizant of getting too close. We believe that people will still want ample space between parties, and this behavior is likely to be permanent. Further, the desire for fresh air and for protected outdoor dining has been a long-time feature of many restaurants. Again, the trend was amplified by this last year, as witnessed by what has happened within the city itself, having granted in downtown Royal Oak the permanent closure of a street. Again, this trend is going to continue in the foreseeable future. The development of more cost-effective operable glass of great size allows for the blending and blurring of the inside and the outside, where we could dematerialize the walls, and if you're familiar with Duggan's woodward, you see how their walls, are very transparent and open up in the summer. As for the parking, as noted, it's a challenge on some occasions, but as we return to using Lyft and Uber, studies, notably a University of Canada study, just before the pandemic found that up to a quarter of all ride-source trips save that number of parking spaces. Non-motorized transport is also what we are desiring as Woodward. We see like Ferndale with the bike lanes that are coming to Woodward. And there is a small but significant amount of foot traffic coming from the adjoining neighborhood. Less parking will be required. Finally, when booking warrants it, and a valet will be engaged who can dense park cars in the available space. We think this solution is an attractive and necessary expansion to allow Redcoat to continue as a success story in Royal Oak. Further, this expansion will show that a couple of long dormant buildings are going to be brought back to life, and these storefronts will be opened up. We hope you look favorably on this project, and we are all here to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for the petitioners at this moment? All right, I have a question. I have a question for Mr. Twing here again. So this is special land use, even though it's already a restaurant, they're not changing the use. It's the reason that we have to grant a special land use is because of just because they're expanding it, and it's alcohol.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's outdoor seating.
Okay. Very good.
Both alcohol and outdoor seating are special land uses.
Okay. And just for the record, the windows on the north side of the new addition will open up. They'll be operable.
And the
Oh, and on Woodward. Okay. All right. I'll open the public comment portion of this. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? Come on up. Please introduce yourself. You get 3 minutes.
My name's Terry Hines, and I heard all your comments about it. It definitely is the best burger in town, and I'm glad that you had this opportunity to expand because the space has been needed for a long time. However, I live on that first block of Chester, right off Woodward, and 39 parking spaces that you won't have is going to put a lot of that traffic right on top of my home all the time. And for that reason, I don't even want to say this, but for that reason, I'm kind of opposed to this. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public in the audience who'd like to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, I will close the public comment section and bring it back to the commission side of the table for further discussions, questions, additional questions for the petitioner or Mr. Twing. Commissioners. And Ms. Beakey, we are discussing the project here. We've heard from the commissioner, or from the petitioner and the public.
Yeah, thank you. I'm following it. I will put out there when it's appropriate. I'd like to hear from the petitioner regarding bike parking and as well as sound muffling for the neighbors.
Did the petitioners hear that? bike parking and sound muffling for the neighbors, if you can address those two issues.
Correct.
Please come up to the mic and...
Yeah, I'm all for adding the bike parking. We can add probably half a dozen spaces toward the rear of the building. As far as the sound, one of the ways that it's designed is there is some limited outdoor seating in the back, which is only going to be seasonal, and it's a solid back to the building facing the alley, so that would help mitigate any noise that's coming from the space. Like we said, the operable windows are north and west. So I think from any of that concern, and again, it's obviously been there since '72. I don't think even the increased capacity is going to change any of that problem. So.
All right, now I have a question for you. Hold on, don't go anywhere. About the parking. I know there's two parking lots behind the building. Only one of them is yours. The other one is not Redcoats.
Correct. The two parking lots you're referring to that are behind to the east of the building.
Alley.
Yeah, one of them belongs to our neighbor tenant, and we use it at night. They're fine with that. They allow us to do that. So, but the larger of the two is ours. The smaller one is theirs.
All right. You say you're tenant. So you.
We're not a tenant. We own the building. I mean, they are tenants to the north of us. They are the ones who have that other parking lot, the smaller parking lot that I think you're referring to.
Yes.
And yeah.
So at night you use that, but you don't have a license deal with them?
Not a formal license deal, no. They close at 6 p.m.
All right.
We have a sort of informal agreement.
All right. Have you used valet parking in the past?
We have, yeah, but we discontinued it sometime in the year before the whole COVID thing because we were finding that it was less and less necessary, really. I mean, really, our parking lot rarely fills up. It's not that we're less busy. It's just people's driving habits have changed significantly. They're more conscientious about riding together with a designated driver, using rideshare, that kind of thing. So there's just less stress on the parking lot than there was 10, 15 years ago.
All right. Last question about this. When you have used valet, where do you park?
They use the existing lots, but the valet people are able to park much more densely than regular customers would be able to do. So we can squeeze in quite a few more cars that way.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Beakey, any further questions for the petitioner?
No, thank you.
All right. Further discussion on this side of the table or a motion relative to the special land use permit? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, Mr. Twing, in the plan review process, does the police department weigh in on proposals like this? And I'm particularly interested if there's been any observations or complaints about parking. I do see that there is permit parking on that side street there. I guess that's Chester. But do we have a sense that there are issues here with parking adequacy?
I don't have any comments from the police department specific to this site. They generally will review this as part of a change to their plan of operation and forward that to the commission. And that's one of the requirements you'll see in the site plan is that still has to occur. But I don't have any indication about whether there's issues here or not from the police.
So the special land use, so we would still have to recommend that they go to the zoning board for a further variance on their parking?
Yeah, the variance is related to number of parking spaces and then the width of the driveway across the back or adjacent to the alley.
Yeah, I don't have, we've approved several other projects there where we've got, basically the alley is the driveway, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm just looking at volume. So the police department, so we, the city commission, would see this again because they will require a change in their plan of operation?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll have input from the police department at that time. Okay, thank you.
I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind. So the discussion of the parking variance needed, is that needed for the special land use or the site plan?
It's needed for in terms of the special land use, you've got to grant permission for them to go seek that variance.
But
So
that's
it's technical.
associated with the special land use and not the site plan.
You'll see it as a condition in the site plan as well.
Okay.
But in order to go seek a variance under the special land use, you have to give them that permission.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion from the commissioners or from Ms. Beakey? You're one of the commissioners. You're just remote. All right. Is there a motion? Ms. Beakey, is there a motion?
I'm listening best I can. I don't have a motion right now.
All right. Mr. Cantina.
I will move to grant the special land use with the contingencies listed.
All right. And the contingency, just to clarify this, the contingency would be that they, just to make sure we have this right, that they would have to be granted any necessary variances from the zoning board?
Well, as part of this one, you're granting permission to seek the variance. As part of the site plan approval, they actually have to obtain it.
Okay.
If they don't get the variance, then their site plan's not approved.
Okay, so just to be clear, the motion is to recommend approval of the special land use and permission to seek the variances from the zoning board. Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, I'm going to say Commissioner Douglas beat you to it. All right, support by Commissioner Douglas. Is there further discussion on this? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, so we've heard that they own the property to the north, and they have a tenant there. And one might say that, well, what if they get a new tenant there that wants to park more cars at just advantageous times? And yet, it's obviously in the owner's best interest to keep a tenant there that doesn't operate past 6 o'clock. So really, I think the net effect here is that they do have sufficient parking, even though that doesn't show up in the actual property ownership. So I feel comfortable that what's going to happen here is not going to be an undue burden on the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Is there further discussion? Any comment from Ms. Beakey?
Yes, I'll just make the comment that, again, consistent with being a neighborhood establishment, that encouraging more walking and biking would also help alleviate the parking problem, and I appreciate the comment about adding the bike racks.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Again, starting with Mr. Klooster.
Yes.
Mr. Gantina.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Ms. Beakey. We're voting.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the motion, and Mr. Curtis is not any longer on the phone. So the motion passes. You've been granted the recommendation for the special land use and to seek the variances. Now we'd like to talk about the site plan. Are there further questions for Mr. Twing or for the petitioners regarding the site plan? Well, I have some. Mr. Twing, I want to start with that funny tree. There's the tree ordinance, I don't know how it works here. But I went to the site, and there's a tree, a mature tree on the property, but for all the world, it looks like it's an accident there, and it's in a very funky place there. And I just wonder how does this, are you guys going to leave the tree where it is, or are you going to take it down?
I would certainly prefer to remove that tree because in fact it was an accident. That's just nature having its way. But it's never been in our way before, so, but.
All right, so I'm going to ask Mr. Twing. So how does that, if they take the tree down, do they have to put a tree back? Is the tree ordinance come into play here?
Unless you approve it. What we need from a staff standpoint is an indication on the site plan that it's either going to stay or be removed. If it's going to be removed, the tree ordinance is going to kick in, and yes, they're going to have to put 2 trees back at least, as well as comply with the requirement for additional inches that are lost. So, and I can't determine that yet, so one of the contingent item is to clarify whether that's occurring.
All right, and do we have the authority to waive the imposition of the tree ordinance in this case?
If you feel it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further questions of the petitioner team or for Mr. Twing regarding the site plan from the panel? Let me ask a quick question, Mr. Gordon. I think he's the one for this. If you can step back up. Sorry, you keep popping up and down.
No.
Do you have any problem with any of the contingencies that are listed here?
No, we do not.
Okay. And one of the issues is to clarify the tree. So I heard, is it Mr. Brown say they prefer to take it down. Tell me about how you would, why you would do that, what the benefit is, and.
Well, as we said, it's nature's accident. We would have someone come out and look at it and make a judgment call as to the quality of it, if it would survive the construction, and we address it. We've done, I mean, compared to what's there right now, there's an extensive amount of landscaping that's proposed on the site. And we do have room in the outdoor space if we need to make up for that.
Why don't you just tell us really quick about the landscaping that you're adding?
Well, there's, you know, the entire perimeter is being surrounded by bushes, and then we've got the screening to the back. And I apologize, it's been a while since we did this drawing. Yeah, there's low bushes all the way around, and then those are planters around the rear perimeter of the outdoor space to screen it from the alley. So, I mean, what's there now, we have one tree, and then we're making a much more green space out of it, so.
Yeah, right now there's a tree and asphalt.
Asphalt, correct.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Gordon from the commissioners? Ms. Beakey, any questions while I still got Mr. Gordon standing here? He keeps trying to sit down.
No, thank you.
All right. Is there further discussion or a motion?
But what I would point out, given that discussion, is item 4E, if the trees to be removed, it would require compliance with the zoning ordinance. If the planning commission doesn't feel that's appropriate, I would remove 4E and approve it as the landscape plan as depicted on the sheet. So I don't know where you're going, but I just want to clarify that.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Twing. I appreciate that. If I can't, as the chair, I can't make a motion, but if I were making a motion, I would do exactly what Mr. Twing just described. But since I cannot make a motion, I'm turned to the commission. Commissioner Douglas.
I will make that motion to approve the site plan with all of the contingencies except item 4E.
Is there a second? Ms. Beakey, is there a second? Well, the chair can second, and I'm going to second.
Oh.
So, is there further discussion on this motion? Mr. Gantino.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to comment a little bit on the reason I didn't support the motion. It seemed as though the petition was sort of ambivalent towards whether the tree stays or goes. I certainly understand that they would like to take the tree down. Generally speaking, I'm not in favor of removing the existing trees, understanding that this one is sort of a happy accident by nature. That's the only reason that I'm not supporting the motion, in the sense that I just prefer to see that tree stay. At the same time, if it does come down, we have the tree ordinance for a reason. One of the reasons is to make sure that we're reestablishing as much of our canopy as we can. And so if we take down a mature existing tree, we really need to, I guess, stick to our guns in terms of the tree ordinance. So that's one reason I did not support it.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Beakey?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I agree with the I would like to see the 4E remain in the contingencies.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on this? Well, I'll make a quick comment. I think you take 4E out. They don't have to take the tree out, but if they do, they're already improving the property with a lot of greenery. I think they're meeting the spirit of the ordinance. And this particular tree is, I do not believe this tree is what we were thinking of when the commission passed the ordinance. I, of course, wasn't on the commission, but it just doesn't seem that this type of tree, if you've been out to the site, you know it's not supposed to be there, really. So any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, I will call for the vote on the motion, starting again with Mr. Klooster.
Yes.
Mr. Gantina.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes?
It's your motion.
Yeah.
Ms. Beakey.
No.
And I'm yes. So the motion passes. So you have.
You confused me.
Motion passes. So the site plan is passed with the contingencies except for 4E. Congratulations and good luck to you. Continued good luck to you. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a site plan only. SP 210712. This is 3420 Fairmont Road. Mr. Twing, tell us about this.
As you indicated, this is a straight site plan. The site itself is on the north side of 13 Mile, just a little bit east of Greenfield. It is zoned multifamily, and so is the surrounding predominantly area. If I can get to the site plan here. You will see in the staff report under the site plan that the staff's planning division is actually recommending that you deny this site plan for several reasons. That the site's inability to comply with the minimum lot size area, the side yard setbacks required of the zoning ordinance, and the excessive amount of driveway area in the front yard that causes each dwelling to have a street-facing garage. Also, according to the engineering division, departments believe it'll be difficult for them to comply with the storm detention ordinance. And as you'll see, the proposed building does sit on the property line to the west and has a small setback on the east. However, if you did want to approve the site plan and wish to move forward with it based on submitted, it would need Zoning Board of Appeals to grant all the necessary variances, the minimum required lot area per dwelling unit, and you will see that it would require some 15,000 square feet versus the lot has 9,000. The setbacks, as I indicated, do not comply, but you do have the ability to approve a site plan and modify the setback requirements based on what you believe is advisable. 3 is the landscaping provision. You can either approve it as depicted, but the petitioner should provide a revised landscape plan for review by the planning office to make sure that it does comply with the zoning ordinance if you chose not to grant it as depicted. We did provide you with a note that kind of indicates the current configuration under this plan. The remaining contingencies, if you were to choose to approve it, are all our standard contingencies regarding lighting and paving and so on.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Twing? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, the issue of their ability to comply with the detention requirements, right now that's speculation on the engineering's part. If we were to approve a site plan, how would the process go whereby they would be, permits would be denied because of their failure to provide sufficient attention?
Yeah, they would have to come up with some design to either comply or they wouldn't be issued permits.
So it would come to a head at the issuance of building permits?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Twing? All right, is the petitioner here? Please come up, introduce yourself, tell us about your project.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. So we purchased the land.
Introduce yourself.
I'm sorry. My name is Ahmed Hingarani. Purchased the land back in December with the intention of kind of playing off the new development that's happening near Beaumont, 13 in Woodward, and some other stuff that's coming up. And wanted to develop a small multifamily community. Obviously, you know, currently it's multifamily with 2 dwellings. But for us, we felt, you know, we could create something with 4 units there. So it's 4 townhome style units, you know, and kind of create some sort of a community feel. We're already in the midst of high density multifamily. And so we wanted to kind of use the space as efficiently as possible, kind of with a modern look, and create a transition from all that high density multifamily into, you know, the single family residential that is just further up the street. And I have my architect and designer here, and if allowed, I could get my civil engineer on the line as well to answer any questions.
All right, are there questions for, and you're welcome to bring your team up in case we do have questions for them, but
Yeah.
Are there questions for the petitioner or their designers? Ms. Beakey, you have any questions for the petitioner or their designers?
I guess the only question, similar to earlier, is if permeable pavers would be considered for the driveway, if that would help the concern about the runoff.
Okay, the question was, did you consider permeable pavers for the driveways?
We have not, but that's something that we could take into consideration.
Sir, designer.
My name is Sam Jonas, the lead designer on the project.
All right, thank you. And who's the other member of your team there?
Yes, I'm Dave Kerstetter. I am the project architect.
All right, thank you. Are there other questions? Mr. Gantina.
So I just want a quick clarification on the parking. There's 8 spaces being proposed, but each of the units has a 1-car garage. Is that second proposed spot just simply a car parked in the driveway of each of the garages?
I can talk about the architecture a little bit and some of the challenges that the site had, if you guys don't mind.
Certainly, come up.
All right, so one of the major issues with this site is the density issue that we have. Your ordinance requires that this lot needs to be 15,000 square feet, but somehow this got rolled into a multifamily zoning. I'm not exactly sure when that happened, but it gave the opportunity for multifamily. And when looking at the lot, it's an 80-foot by 120-foot lot surrounded 100% by multi-family, high density, I would say. So it created a challenge of what actually can be done with this site. Looking at like Ahmed mentioned, there's higher density, and then there's aspect of regular residential homes right down Fairmont. And to create something that's high density didn't make sense because we just don't have lot size. If you're abiding by the rules of the ordinance, it's 25 feet on both sides. 25 feet, 25 feet, we're only talking about a 30-foot lot that we can actually build something. That's a single-family home, which is there right now. It's an abandoned single-family home. It's run down, and there's squatters in the building. So capturing the site and tearing it down is feasible. You know, that's something that we want to do, but reintroducing another single family in that area, in such a high density area, does not make any sense. I don't think anybody would be willing to purchase a piece of property with 100% parking all the way around it. It's a challenge, but I think what we're proposing is something that is a transition from high density to mid density to the single family homes. It's a clean transition. Our other challenges, you know, is our setbacks, and you know, one of the things that was mentioned was the driveway issue. You know, we don't want to see this as a parking lot, introducing a new parking lot to be able to occupy this building. So creating 8 spaces, 9 spaces that this really engages the other parking lots didn't make any sense. So we wanted really to connect to Fairmont using more of a residential style approach. And that's where the single car garage came from, and that's where the driveways came from. This is our second iteration, so we had a different design, and we try to consolidate the driveways as much as we can, but we feel that this sort of gives a nice balance between what's there, what our lot is, and what the single-family homes bring. I think that's it from our aspect. We also looked at the scale of the building. We didn't want to get higher than the high-density buildings that are around it, and we didn't want to get too big or too small for the single-family residents next to it. So it's a challenge to bring in something a little different.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Gardena.
So the concern over stormwater management's already been addressed, but I guess I'll ask the question a different way in terms of, from a sustainability perspective, are there other amenities to the project that you're considering that you can speak to?
Architecturally speaking, we have not looked at other opportunities. We did talk about possible solar panels being on the roof, but that's more of a maintenance type issues in the future. Also, charging stations we wanted to introduce inside the units itself, so there are some energy efficient components that we're looking to do. And as architects, we're always trying to build as green as possible. So insulating the building is a huge factor, and we're proposing a lot of glass on the front facade, which is also west facing, so we're trying to get a better thermal glazing aspect to it.
You may have already addressed this, so I apologize. Is this intended to be a for rent or an owned unit building?
So this is intended to be a for rent, as one of the key components to this is looking at the space, and we're trying to attract new residents into this area that's needed for Beaumont Hospital, as well as more of a transitional space for a single up-and-coming family that you can have a nice residence until you transition into a different place.
All right, thank you. Ms. Beakey, do you have any questions for the petitioner or the designers after hearing the latest?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. All right, is there any further discussion from the panel or further questions? I guess I have a comment I'll make. I was out there at the site, and I agree with the designer that it's a very challenging circumstance there, because it's a single family home, is an island between apartment building, apartment building, apartment building, so multifamily wouldn't be appropriate there. But I do have some difficulty with this design, and but I have a lot of sympathy for the difficulty. Certainly a single family home is not appropriate there, and something multifamily is appropriate there, and getting the right design, I think, is the question here. Any discussion as to the site plan from the commissioners or a motion? Ms. Beakey?
I'll just make one comment if I may. And,
yes.
Again, I've also visited the site today, and again, it's an extremely unusual situation with the surrounding buildings. And to me, even though typically I'm very concerned about the lot lines and the setbacks, this particular spot seems like it could accommodate this design. And Mr. Casado, you just mentioned you had some concerns on, so I would be interested to hear the concerns about the design other than the drainage, which we know is one. Because to me, this design seems quite appropriate for that location, potentially.
Okay, well, we'll have a discussion here. The primary thing that hit me the wrong way was the front-facing garages and the driveways there, which I think that we've seen other, and there's some subjectivity to this, but we've seen other designs in town on tight sites multifamily that creatively dealt with interfacing with the street and parking, and I think that I wasn't as, this one didn't give me as good a feeling, and the lot coverage was also an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion, Mr. Klooster?
Yeah, I'll echo some of those concerns. I think the front yard driveways and the front-facing garages are a design concern. I think they're in conflict with the direction that our ordinance is trying to lead developments. We are trying to be more pedestrian friendly, and street-facing garages are less encouraging of that. I think the setbacks or inability to have any setback on the west lot line is a concern, along with the general lot coverage. So I agree that multifamily is the right use here. I think I'm going to have to agree with staff's recommendation that this is not it.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, so there have been other multifamily developments that we as a commission have looked at over the course of the past year, let's say, all of which, or I'm going to say all of which, I may be wrong about that, were multifamily in commercial zoning. That is, they were on major corridors. In those cases, I have felt comfortable matching the setbacks of those multifamily buildings with the setback requirements of other commercial establishments. But that is not the case here. This is a multifamily area. We have setback requirements for multifamily, and I am inclined to want to adhere to those. We've seen here that the proposer could in fact build a duplex here, quite a generous one, I suspect, and I would encourage them to pursue that because they've got the square footage that would allow that. And supporting the reasons that we've heard from Mr. Klooster, I too am going to agree with staff's recommendation on this.
All right, any other discussion? Ms. Beakey, anything to add?
No, thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion to deny the site plan in accordance with staff's recommendation based on items A and B listed in that initial paragraph.
Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Gantina. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote, starting with Mr. Klooster.
Yes.
Mr. Gantina.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Ms. Beakey for voting.
Yes.
And I'm a yes on the motion. Sorry about that. Back to the drawing board. Thank you for your time. All right. All right, next item on the agenda is a sign variance, 210710. This is at 1100 South Main Street. Mr. Twing.
Okay, let's see here. First of all, what I'd like to point out, item C, wave 20 inches is really a typo and should say 30 inches. What's being proposed as part of the multifamily project on South Main are two signs. They did file for a building permit, which were rejected for non-compliance with the sign ordinance. The first is a blade type sign that's 2.5 feet wide by 18 feet high and would have approximately a sign area about 40 square feet. The sign itself would project out some 42 inches from the east facade, and the sign copy would be perpendicular to the building. What the sign ordinance allows in terms of projecting signs is that wall signs have to be parallel, meaning running horizontal and plane versus vertical and plane. The second one is a projecting wall sign would be placed on the metal canopy at the corner or entrance. It's about 6 inches by 30 inches in size, but given its placement, it projects out some 6 feet 3 inches from the east facade. In addition, the sign ordinance only allows one wall sign, and they're proposing 2. And then lastly, both signs to some extent project out over the public right-of-way, and that's not allowed to occur. Those, I believe, are the variances based on the denial letter. And you should be able to see the pictures. I've got the blade sign displayed on the screen in a couple different ways, and then the projecting sign that's a smaller one that's on the canopy is this elevate down here in this corner.
All right. Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Twing? Because I have a couple. First of all, the canopy, if it did not have the word elevate on it, that wouldn't be a sign, right?
No.
It would be a canopy, and if it was only a canopy, is there any issue with it? Does that project out over the right-of-way?
No.
All right. And the blade sign does project over the right-of-way?
Yes.
All right. And those are the only 2 signs we're talking about, though, the canopy and the blade? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Twing? All right. Is the petitioner here? Please introduce yourself and tell us about your request.
Good evening, Cal Mansour, representing Sign Emporium in Encore Management LLC. The signs that we're proposing to the committee are in line with what's pretty much going on with the rest of the city up and down Main Street, as you folks probably know better than I do. I'm sorry, I just have to ask Mr. Twain. Mr. Twain, did you say that the awning is not projecting over the right-of-way?
No, the canopy is.
Yes, sir, it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the letters that we're proposing are flat on the canopy, so.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. Yep. I just wanted to clarify, because you said it wasn't, but it is projecting over the right-of-way.
No.
Yep, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, basically, we're just proposing something that's pretty much in line with what's going on, how the rest of the high-rises are from the Hyatt Place to other places in the area. It is, the sign, it is 40 square feet that we're proposing for the projecting sign. If the projection is an issue, we can adjust that. And the elevate sign over the main entrance for the entire unit is approximately 1.25 square feet. So as far as the square footage, I think we're definitely in line with the square footage. The rest of it is up to you folks. Thank you.
All right, don't go away.
Nope.
Are there questions for the petitioner? Ms. Beakey, any questions for the petitioner?
Yeah, I have a question. I see in the rendering of the building, which is on the petitioner's website, that originally the address was over the entrance overhang, and the address for wayfinding is quite helpful, and I'm wondering why they're proposing just to have the building name. And that's number one question. And the second one is originally there was there was a second signage at the top of the building, but on the wall of the building rather than a blade sign. And would they consider returning to that original design?
Did you hear the question?
No, I'm so sorry.
Okay,
I apologize.
I think I'll go backwards because I might have, the question.
It's just muffled a little bit, that's all, I apologize.
Yeah, the question was that on your website, you showed a different design, which Ms. Beakey, I think, understood to be an original design for putting the sign on the wall and not a blade sign and putting the address on the canopy. Tell us about those options.
Yeah, I wasn't a part of the original
site plan that they did with you folks when they approved the building. This was the changes that were made probably in the last few months that they felt that this sign was going to be more feasible for them just for attraction purposes.
All right. Ms. Beakey, were you able to hear that?
Yes, thank you.
All right. All right. Other questions for the petitioner? I have a question. How do you measure the lumens that the sign, the lit sign emanates?
We can, yes, sir, we can. What's lit right now on this one is just the letters themselves, the Elevate letters themselves. They are channel letters, and they will be flush mounted to the sign. They're not halo lit, so all you're getting is the projection in the front. And yes, we can count the luminance on that for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of the signs. I think the Hyatt sign is more appropriately subtle, while some of the other Blade signs that we recently approved are too bright.
Yeah, this is very subtle. I mean, the letters are not thick; they're thin letters, and the lighting on it is unless you, I mean, you can't see them unless you really drive up close to them, pretty much.
My understanding is that something like the managing the lumens, the amount of light that comes out, takes somebody who cares about it and pays some attention to it and make sure it happens.
The owner brought that up. He was very concerned about the same thing. He wanted it subtle.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I got to turn back to Mr. Twing because I might have misunderstood something. The canopy, if the canopy is over the right-of-way, is that permitted?
Yes.
Okay. The sign is also over the right-of-way. Is that permitted?
No.
Okay. But the canopy, if it has the word on it, is a sign, right?
Correct.
So then it's a sign over the right-of-way.
Right, that's why it's listed as a
Okay.
variance.
All right. So if he took the word off it and put the address on it, it wouldn't be a sign anymore, and it would be okay.
Right.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Twing or the petitioner from the commission? Ms. Beakey, do you have any other questions for the petitioner?
No, thank you.
All right. Is there a motion from the commission?
I would just like to make a quick comment.
Go right ahead.
Again, from a wayfinding perspective, I do think the address should be on that canopy, and the canopy is good as far as, again, protecting people from rain, etc. And then as far as the blade sign goes, the other one we had approved recently was because it was in the middle of the large building. And so I'm curious what other people think about this one on a smaller building.
All right. I'll once again, Ms. Beakey, I'll engage you. I think that we've had other blade signs. I think one of the problems I'm going to spout off here a little bit, and when we do our master plan and maybe we do some zoning, I think that at the site plan stage there ought to be some indication of what the plan for the sign is. I'm a little disappointed that some of these signs seem to be afterthoughts that weren't part of the original design. I think they probably should come before the Planning Commission with at least some indication what the sign plan is. Having said that, I think the solution for the blade sign over at the Roy was a good one. I'm not sure I like this as much. This is a different type of a building, and it's hanging over the right-of-way, where the one at the Roy is not hanging over the right-of-way, even though I don't like how bright the one at the Roy is. So I am a little bit struggling with that, although the petitioner is obviously pointing out that we've approved a number of blade signs, but I think each one has to be taken on its own merits. I don't think we can just say, okay, we're going to allow blade signs, especially one that's over the right-of-way. I'd like to see more attention given at the earlier design phase about these aesthetic issues like the sign, which is pretty important. And so that's my comment about the blade sign. As for the canopy, I'll make this comment here. I like the canopy. I think the canopy ought to be there, and quite frankly, my feeling is that putting the name Elevate on there, I don't know what purpose that possibly serves. It should probably be the address. So those are my comments. Commissioner Douglas.
Mr. Twing, does the street address on a building count towards the signage? I mean,
You're allowed that, you actually have to have an address on your building under the building code. So-
Right, that's what I thought.
So no, it doesn't count towards your wall sign calculation.
So they could put, you know, any sort of large visible street number on this, which they should.
Well, there is a limitation on how big it can be.
Okay.
But
they can put a street number on here. Can we, and we don't even have to instruct them to do that because that will be determined in their final, you know, building permits, right?
yeah, my suggestion is if you don't want an actual sign identifying the building on here, is you deny it. They can come back and propose an address that building would be fine with. So if you don't want wording on here, I would, as far as that goes, I'd just deny that particular sign.
So, okay, I'm gonna make a motion, and that is to, get this up here, where are we? Deny A and B and C and allow D and E with the sign the canopy sign projecting over the right-of-way, but obviously not the blade sign because I've already omitted that from this. That's my motion.
Okay.
Can you restate it?
So I'm proposing to approve D and E and omitting A, B, and C.
Which sign are you trying to approve?
I'm trying to approve the canopy. Am I not describing this correctly?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you're...
I'm trying to approve the canopy and not approve the
Blade
sign projecting over the right-of-way.
All right, so, okay, A, B, C, your motion is to deny those.
Yes.
And D and E would, you would approve those. That's the motion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Support.
All right, is there a discussion? Ms. Beakey, do you have any comments?
No, I'm following. Mm-hmm.
All right. Further discussion from the folks in person here. All right. Hearing no further discussion, I'm going to call for the vote. Once again, starting today with Mr. Klooster.
Yes.
Mr. Gantina.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Ms. Beakey.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So you've been approved for the canopy sign, but not for the
You do
blade
realize
sign.
that the canopy sign has 8 inches of area in height.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you.
All right, next order of business is another sign variance, 210711. This is 1725 Crooks Road, Zupac Law. Mr. Twain.
Very briefly, this was denied by the building department as a prohibited sign. It is a painted-on sign that was painted on the building. The sign ordinance does not allow the signs to be painted on. The sign itself is 4 feet by 5 feet and 20 square feet in sign area. Again, just to indicate the issue is that it's a painted-on sign.
All right, so I'll ask a question. The sign is already there, and the only issue really before us is whether it's painted on or not. If it wasn't painted on, would it be in violation?
Well, it was an actual sign and got a permit for it, no.
Okay, but this size and location of a sign would be permitted had it been a proper sign?
I'm not sure about the location. I believe it's on the adjacent building, but I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because if these are two different, I wasn't sure, I had trouble following this, and maybe the petition will enlighten us a little bit, but this is two different buildings, And if I understand I guess, again, we'll hear from the petitioner, but the petitioner got permission to put their sign on somebody else's building. But the building has a sign on the east and a sign on the south, so that would be in conformance, yes? Because they can have a sign on each side, yes?
You can have a wall sign on each facade, given the way the sign ordinance is dealt with now with court rulings. You can put somebody else's sign on your building. We don't get into what the content is. So I'm going to assume this could be a permitted sign if it was not a painted on sign.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Twing? All right, Ms. Beakey, any questions for Mr. Twing?
No, thank you.
All right, is the petitioner here? Please introduce yourself and tell us why you should get the relief.
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Jordan Zupke. I am the Zoop of Zoopak Law. My law partner, Marina Chupak, couldn't be here, but it's a combination of our names. So I guess cutting to the heart of it, I mean, ultimately it sounds like the sign would otherwise be a viable sign under the sign ordinance, but for the fact that it's painted on there. I'm going to first just apologize for the fact that the signs, when it was initially, I had an artist come to me with this idea to sort of play off of law and order with law and yoga, because we have a very unique business. Ultimately, we're a law firm that has a yoga studio or a yoga element. I mean, we're kind of a wellness center. We're a very unique space on a very unique street with the name Crooks. I mean, the whole street is kind of it's an interesting part of town. I mean, I can't even tell you that we've got the gas station across the street. Hopefully you've all driven by there. I mean, we fit in. Now, painted versus putting a light box, I've got no lumens. I'm ultimately the greenest thing you could do on this wall. It would cost a significant amount of money and also create more waste to just recreate this as a light box, which would probably annoy the community. I don't think there's anybody here from the neighborhood. I know most of them. All of my neighbors signed off on this. I would like to say that having driven around Royal Oak, I live in Royal Oak, Nor Leather has the lips, the ice cream shop has ice cream, the hair space has hair. I think from a content perspective, we fit in with what's around the community. But I guess my real request is just to let it stay without having to create something that's probably more annoying to, I mean, we're kind of central in the neighborhood. It doesn't light up. I don't want it to light up. I just want a way for people to see me. There's clearly a visibility problem. We're like so eclipsed by our neighbors, people don't find us. I mean, really, if you're traveling South Crooks, you'll pass us every time. If you're going North Crooks, you'll see the law and yoga sign. They find us. We're always visible. It's a one-of-a-kind piece of art. I tried to capture that in my request. Again, I hear the concern about green. I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do at this point, but it's there. Now I know what the city wants if I ever have to come before you again in terms of signage. I try and comply the best I can, but I clearly have the support from the neighbors. So I think you wanted me to enlighten on the issue of whose wall is it on. It's technically, according to the sign department, considered 1725. However, those same bricks are my office wall on the inside. So I was told that the bricks on the outside of their building are considered theirs. However, it was given to me by Alan Lappin, the owner, who I'm also representing, So technically, I think it could be considered 1725, it could be considered 1719. I don't think we need to split hairs about that unless the Planning Commission feels it's necessary, but I think I'm covered in terms of whose wall is it. I'm just begging you to let me keep my very near and dear son.
All right, are there questions for the petitioner? Mr. Cantina.
So I guess my question is around the inception of the sign to begin with. Was it born out of perhaps just a misunderstanding of the sign ordinance, or maybe not realizing there was a sign ordinance to begin with? I certainly understand the request to keep what's there. My question is around, were you aware of the ordinance and it went up anyways, and now you're begging for forgiveness?
To be quite honest, I did not think it constituted a sign. I considered it to be an artwork. And I figured that paint was not, I mean, I didn't consider it a sign, to be quite honest. I really thought that it was like just paint and art, which I know now that it's considered, I mean, I know it closely resembles what our business is, but there are other instances of this around the city. So I guess it could be open for interpretation. I mean, I'm a lawyer by trade, so there's an argument. I think that could go both ways, but
All right. I think Mr. Gantina asked you the question that I was going to ask you as a lawyer. Why don't you come and submit for a variance? And you answered the question. So I would also say that I appreciate your creative methodology of marketing. I'm aware of everything. Most of us are aware of you. You have the truck and you have everything else. You also do have, and I'm not picking on you, but you do have a law and yoga neon sign facing south out of the window and a Zupac neon sign facing east out of the window, so you got plenty of signs there. I'm really not buying the nobody can see me argument, but I think I think that your paint here is creative, and I think if Mr. Lupin would have showed up here and asked for a variance and to paint that sign, I for one would have voted for it. So I'm going to support your request. But you've got a lot of signs over there, you know that.
If I may, and I greatly appreciate your support, it still is difficult. We do have a visibility problem. I mean, it's the way that was architecturally designed is crazy. I mean, we are so sandwiched between those buildings. And the one that's for the gas station, you only see it at the gas station. I mean, you go by it, there's no stop right there. So I'm just trying to cover my grounds and get people to come in and support us. But thank you for your support. And next time I now know better. And we'll never be before you again except for seeking a variance.
All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? Ms. Beakey, any questions for the petitioner?
No questions, thank you.
Is there further discussion or a motion from the commission? Ms. Beakey, is there a motion?
I would just like to make one comment. It's interesting to me to learn that the wall signs such as this that are painted are somehow not allowed or not preferred. And again, for our future consideration, I think the idea of painted signs, again, both because of the artistic as well as the vintage aspects, are something that we should keep in mind for the future of potentially being permissible.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the requested variance to allow the prohibited sign type.
Is there a second? Ms. Beakey, is there a second?
Sorry, what is the motion? I didn't hear.
The motion is to approve the requested variance by Mr. Gantino.
I'll second.
Okay, the second by Ms. Beakey. Is there further discussion? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, there's a reason. So if you look around Royal Oak and you see, for example, the sign on Ray's Ice Cream, the drawings on the side of the Maury, those are works of art that are approved by our Arts Commission. So this has not been approved by our Arts Commission, and I see a good reason for not allowing painted signs. Because we as commissioners cannot regulate the content of a sign. I mean, we can only regulate its size and placement and so forth. And so I could see this being a slippery slope of less artistic signs than the one we see here popping up all over the city with no ability to control them. This sign doesn't need to have lighting. I mean, you said you didn't want to have lighting. Great, don't have lighting, just have some metal letters that, let's say, law and yoga in the same size and shape as the placement is here. But I agree with Mr. Casada. You have ample signage on the front of your building. Signage is about wayfinding, not about marketing. And I suspect that your clients, when they are going to come to you for a meeting, can find this address without the need for the law and yoga sign. So I will be voting against the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. Mr. Klooster, you're the one.
No.
Mr. Gantina?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
No.
Ms. Beakey?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So, congratulations, the variance carried.
Thank you.
Don't do it again.
I'm sorry?
I said, don't do it again.
Of course.
Read the ordinance before you paint the sign.
You know, hindsight is the only perfect science, as my father always said.
Uh-huh.
All right, thank you very much.
We really appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Beakey.
All right. Next item on the agenda, sign variance 210712. This is sign variance for 210 East 3rd Street. Mr. Twing, tell us about this.
You have before you a request to allow two wall signs on the north facade of the building, which is right over here at the corner of 3rd and Troy, the southwest corner. So the north side, they're proposing another sign for Match RX. And then there's also a request for allowing 3 wall signs on the building's east facade. And that includes, let me get here, a proposed Match Square sign, as well as the signs for the Comedy Castle that currently exist. All of the signs, if you added them all up, are under the 100 square feet, but the sign ordinance allows 1 wall sign per facade, and therefore the variance request is for 2 on the north building facade and 3 on the east building facade.
All right, thank you. And I guess I have a question right off the bat, is that interestingly enough, the Comedy Castle has what is in effect a blade sign off the corner that's canvas. How does that figure into anything?
I believe they treated that off the other side, and it's not a wall sign.
Okay, well, it's like a flag or something,
Right.
But does that count as a sign?
It probably would, but it's not the ones that building was dealing with.
Okay, it's counted for the south side, you're saying? Okay, because the south side is pretty blank there otherwise. All right, any other questions for Mr. Twing?
So, and I will say by way of point of history, the Comedy Castle's request for the little person on the sign and the sign on their awning left them way under what they were allowed. So they've really kept their signage to a minimum based on what they might have been allowed to have. So that was why the sign, or this body, many years ago authorized that image or that flag.
And thank you for that history, and I'll also say it's a good example of subtlety being an elegant approach to signage. Comedy Castle doesn't scream that they're here, but you know they're there, and you know that something about them just by the quality of their presentation.
Yeah.
So that was my editorial. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Twing? All right. Is the petitioner here?
Yes, sir.
Hello again.
You look familiar.
Yeah. Why don't you introduce yourself again, though, because for the
Carol
record.
Mansour, Sign Emporium, here representing Match RX, and we're proposing two signs. There is two different entities that are at that building. They are in line with the existing wall sign that's there, the flush-mounted letters. They are backlit only. They're not front lit. We're proposing the same thing, metal letters, which are halo lit only. Thank you.
All right, and I got a couple questions here, or at least one. So there is already a sign on the corner. That's why there's 2 on the north and 3 on the south. I think there's 3 on the east, because there's another business in there, and that sign is going to stay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so I know, so these are businesses that have moved into the building. This Match R and Match Square, those are 2 different companies?
That is correct, sir.
All right, and all right. Okay, any other questions for the petitioner? Ms. Beakey, any questions for this petitioner about the signs at 3rd and Troy?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Gantina.
I just have a quick question maybe for Mr. Twing. The Comedy Castle signage in that building, are we talking about one contiguous building in terms of the building that the 2 signs that are in front of us right now and the Comedy Castle building, is it one contiguous building but just addressed as separate buildings? Because it almost seems like
it's being treated as one
large
building.
Okay. Even though there's multiple addresses.
Yeah, you can have multiple tenants.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
It's kind of like Etkin's office building, I guess, by example.
All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? All right. Is there some discussion or a motion on this? Ms. Beakey, any discussion, motion, or further question for the petitioner?
None at this time.
All right. I'll make a quick comment. In the past, this is a large building. I didn't realize it had multiple addresses. That's interesting that it does. And I think in the past I've supported where you're a business, you're in a building, you expect to have a sign. I don't think this is overdoing it. So that's my comment. Mr. Klooster.
I will make a motion to approve the requested variances for the increased number in signs.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. Is there further discussion on this motion?
Yeah, so, and I think this is one of those instances where the signage is wayfinding. I think that's where we've generally been supportive of granting variances to improve the wayfinding ability of signage. And so the signage area is under what's allowed. It's small in relation to the size of the facade, and serves that function of helping people find where they're trying to go.
All right, thank you. Ms. Beakey, any comments on the motion?
No, thank you.
All right. Any other comments or discussion? All right, hearing none, I will call for the vote to approve the requested variance. Mr. Klooster?
Yes.
Mr. Gantina?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Ms. Beakey?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Congratulations. Good luck to you.
Good evening. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the agenda. Oh, no, it doesn't. We still got the Road Commission report and Mr. Twing.
Those are both item 4 and 5 are for your information. We get the County Road Commission report every now and then, and it's addressed to you, so we've forwarded that on. And item 5 is just a summary of the administrative approvals that have occurred.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Twing or on the road commission report and the other report? I forgot the name of it already. The administrative site plan approvals. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the additions to the agenda, and the first one is the status or procedures. We want to talk about the master plan schedule and RFP. Ms. Beakey, do you have some questions for Mr. Twing?
Sure. I just wanted to find out and confirm that the budget that was allocated in the city budget was approved for getting assistance with the master plan coming up. And then just to understand better what the schedule is in terms of how the Planning Commission might give input regarding the RFP, as well as the selection of the consulting firm that will then work with us. So just a general overview, and so just also the public can be aware of what that schedule is might potentially shape up to be.
Well, my understanding the budget includes $300,000 for a yet to be determined item. It's a line item related to a master plan update. Whether that also includes a zoning ordinance update or not, I think we still have to get in the details with. The first step and normal, in my opinion, having done this would be to twofold, is come back and ask the Planning Commission at some point to adopt a resolution that you wanted to proceed with a master plan update. We did that at the last 5-year review. The next 5-year review would technically be start next year, 2022. So we would probably look for a clear indication that when you wanted to start the master plan. Would it be prior to that, or would it be simply in part of that review? So that might be the first step that we would take to get a clear indication. In terms of sending out an RFP, we probably, and I've already had staff looking at the idea of doing an RFQ to identify qualified firms first. Generally speaking, I would not bring that to a board or a committee to review. It would just be an administrative staff write-up and to send out. But if you wanted to see it, I don't have any objections to you seeing it. And then from there, we would proceed forward. Technically, the approval and selection of the consultant would be done by the City Commission because of the budget. Obviously, the Planning Commission could recommend a firm. The City Commission may want to identify the Planning Commission as the primary body, or they may, as occurred previously in 1999 or 2000, whenever it was, created kind of a task force to be involved with it. So it's kind of early in the stage for me to even suggest a schedule. We've been fairly busy with other items up to now. Obviously, those funds would only have become available July 1st. So we'll move forward with that. There's been several other things we've been working on ahead of it. So I can't answer your question about a schedule. I don't know that at this point. But I think the first step would be probably drafting a resolution to get clear direction that the Planning Commission wanted to go forward.
Any other questions for Mr. Twing?
So in terms of a resolution, does that have to be a complicated thing, or is that a simple statement?
No, it's like the one you adopted at the, my thought would be it would be similar to the one you adopted 3 years ago and then rescinded?
Right.
Or
No,
4 years ago and
did we
rescinded?
rescind it? No, the City Commission rescinded it.
Well, the city commission rescinded funding, the planning commission rescinded moving forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a two-step. So I think that would be the first thing, is the planning commission taking an action. We'd send it probably up to the city commission to get their concurrence and or what role they wanted to involve in it. There is some wording in the statute, the planning statute, about whether the city commission is going to want to be able to approve the final master plan. So those would be the first two steps, I would think.
Well, I mean, can the resolution be as simple as something that we would state today? I mean,
No, I would rather bring it back next month and give you a drafted one.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'd rather do that.
there's something more substantive than just
Yes.
me shooting from the hip.
Yes.
Which could still happen.
That's okay.
Do we need to formally request that you bring that back next month, or?
No, I mean, I got that indication you want to see something. We'll put something together. It'll probably be very similar to, like I said, the resolution that was passed previously, which really just identifies that you want to move forward. And given it's not the normal 5 years, we'd probably add some language that you've determined that you want to proceed sooner than that for a variety of reasons.
Well, and the fact that we're starting it, I mean, we won't complete it until 2022 anyway.
Well, the last one took 2 years.
So we won't complete it until 2023 or thereabouts. So getting the ball rolling, is not an untimely decision. And I will say I'm glad for your idea of using an RFQ process than an RFP. I think that's a much more productive way to go about tasks like this.
Right. So we'll bring that.
I think, if I may add,
Yes.
I'm not necessarily hearing every comment, but with regard to the RFQ, again, RFP, I mean, if an RFP is well structured, I mean, I think it can work well, but for the RFQ also, I think it would be nice to have an opportunity to make sure that we articulate some of the things that we're sure we'd like the firms to have some experience in, things that we've discussed, like form-based code, sustainability. Again, I think the zoning issues are important. But I look forward to discussing that next meeting and working on that, or however the resolution be formatted. And then also, I think, given the 2022 date, I think making some advances in this year would be practical to make sure that we have a good 18-month arc for the work to get done, because it is a lengthy process once it starts, as you all know. Thank you very much for that clarification, and it's timely since the budget was approved in July. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this discussion issue? All right, thank you. We'll look forward to your presentation next month. All right, the last item on the agenda added was our going forward about these meetings. So today we obviously had the first in-person meeting. We had a couple of folks that were remote. One of the things that was valuable here is we learned that it's tough to hear on the phone. I think Ms. Beakey made a valiant effort to contribute, and Mr. Curtis had a little more difficulty. I think that sounded like a technical problem. So I think we need to discuss, just to confirm, what we're going to do in the future and how we might address some of the technical difficulties we had today. So, Mr. Tring, can you just, for the record, I know you told us in the emails, but just for the record, can you just explain what the relationship here is between the state of emergency and the department's authority, et cetera?
Well, basically, the state of emergency, what the city commission has adopted, that's been extended or is in place until the end of this month, allows for remote electronic meetings. It doesn't require them. It just simply allows you to carry out what we had been doing, which were Zoom meetings. Given that City Hall open, the public's in it, we notice this meeting as an in-person meeting. If the Planning Commission wants to go back to remote electronic Zoom meetings, two things need to happen. The city commission needs to extend that past July 31st. It's my understanding you may take that up at the meeting of the 26th.
Yeah.
The problem that has created for planning staff is that we have to give notices for these things 15 days ahead. And I'm very leery of giving notice for something I don't know that's going to happen. So if the commission extends it, you could go back to Zoom remote meetings and just do it the way you've been doing it for the last several months under the state order as well as the city's order.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you want to continue in this format in person, you're entirely able to do that. As I said, there's no requirement under that emergency order that you hold electronic meetings. The problem we have in this room is currently there is no way to run Zoom meetings. The cameras that are in here are for WROK. When they stream, as you heard on the phone, there's a minute delay. So we really haven't been able to set up a Zoom meeting in this room. So that's not a hybrid option that we can do currently. The only thing we've been able to do is determine that obviously you can do a conference call in, but there's some audio issues there. I'm totally willing to do either that the Planning Commission wants to adopt as it goes forward. Again, my only concern with going back to a Zoom meeting at this point is I don't think, and I don't want to speak for the commission, I don't know how they're going to vote. They may vote to extend the emergency order through the end of the year when the state order expires, or the Open Meetings Act, I believe, expires. They may do that, but if they don't do it till the 26th, which is the next meeting, I'm kind of stuck. If I notice for a Zoom meeting and they don't extend it, then I'm going to cancel the August meeting because I don't have time to renotice.
So I would, having been at that meeting, I would say that I sense there's support at the city commission level for an extension, and the length of that extension remains debatable. There are different opinions on it, but I would expect that it would be at least through the end of September, not through the end of, if not through the end of the year. So and to hold these meetings and to not have members be able to fully participate does not serve our customers well. And it makes it difficult for us as well. So I'm going to introduce a motion that the Planning Commission's August meeting be held via Zoom.
I have a quick clarifying question, just to make sure I understood everything correctly. If the emergency order does not get extended past July 31st, the option of Zoom meetings is taken away at that point, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Okay, but your motion is to hold it by Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. No contingencies there?
Nope.
All right. Okay, is there a second on the motion? Ms. Beakey, is there a second?
Did I hear correctly? The motion is to have the August meeting via Zoom?
Yes. The question is there a second?
I'll second to keep the conversation moving forward.
All right, then I'll pipe up myself and say this. I think there's a definite difference in dynamic when you're in person. I think that, I mean, the Zoom worked pretty good. We got used to it. There's definitely a different dynamic. And I think that in talking about serving the customers, I think it proved, to me, it seemed very difficult for people to effectively voice their opinions from the public. There was always technical issues. So if we're talking about serving the customers, being in person is, I think, properly serving the customers. However, there's also, this is a difficult issue. And we do want everybody's involvement. And we just saw that there were some technical issues here. However, I would also say this is the first time we did it. We stumbled through it, but people have been having conference calls forever, and I find it hard to believe, and this is far be it from me to say because I'm not the technical one, but it's hard for me to believe we couldn't improve our conference call capability over the next month, because, I mean, that is a very established technology. It so happens that we're using the phone over there, but it seems to me that there, in every conference room, there's these portable speakers that sit right. You could put one right here between myself and Commissioner Douglas, and it might make things better. So I'm not sure we can't improve that. And the trade-off between working on our audio and going back to Zoom, I'm not sure that favors going back to Zoom to serve the customers. So we certainly had a lot of people here tonight who participated, and so I'm kind of dubious about going back to Zoom when I think there's an opportunity to allow commissioners to participate through audio. That's my comment.
I'll tend to agree on the premise that I think the public engagement was more difficult via the Zoom environment than what we saw today in an in-person meeting. And from that perspective, with the opportunities available to us to do public meetings in person, I think we should continue to try and do those.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Ms. Beakey, any discussions? Were you able to hear that?
Ironically, I'm not hearing all of these comments, but just generally speaking, I'm open to either way. And in the conference call, I do agree could be made more functional, and it would be an option. So if the majority of you prefer being in person, I'm okay being on the conference call. I can't speak for Paul, obviously. That's my comment. And again, I'm not hearing the whole discussion right now that well.
All right, thank you. All right. Any other comments, Commissioner Douglas?
Well, I am not at all optimistic that by our next meeting there will be any change in the electronic capacity of this room. There's a room over there, a conference room, which does have, what do you call it, conference call capabilities, but I mean, this room was designed for, face-to-face participation. I don't think anybody ever anticipated when they were designing this building that we need to do that, and I don't know that our staff or others will be able to pivot within a month.
All right, thank you. Mr. Twing, let me ask you, do you think there's technical personnel that are at your disposal that could improve the audio situation?
Well, I can't guarantee it. We have changed some of the conference rooms that previously did not have setups for Zoom meetings, and added cameras and added other things to them to make them functional. I don't know that it would be a problem to bring in another speaker or two that you could hear on a conference call. It's just where it connects in. And there's a lot of connect points here, so I think we could add probably more mics.
I also would point out, and again, I'm not the super technical one, but there's also web-based conference call capabilities, and I don't know how that could factor in, but is there an IT person that works for the city?
Oh, yes.
Would you be willing to engage that person and present them this problem?
I'll do that tomorrow. I mean, we have been.
Well, they know it.
Yeah, they know it.
They heard it. They got an earful last night.
Yeah.
All right.
But I mean, wherever those are really the two. What we have is conference call technology or Zoom meetings. I don't have any way to run a Zoom meeting in here, and I doubt that's going to happen.
I also think our mics were off for a large portion of the meeting at the beginning, which maybe contributed to the folks on the phone not being able to hear us.
Yeah, there's been some. When we tested it last week, the volume was much better, so I'm not sure what's happening over there. on your mics on that end, so.
All right. I got a question for Mr. Liss. So there, obviously we proceeded with the DDA meeting and this meeting, but just for the record, having our commissioners on conference call, that is in compliance with the Open Meetings Act?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But we had to notice it differently.
Yeah, you have to, you know.
We had to notice that was going to occur. So however you want to meet changes how we notice the meetings, so.
All right, thank you. All right, any other discussion on this issue? All right, hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. The motion is to hold the August meeting by Zoom. And so we'll call for the vote. Mr. Klooster?
No.
Mr. Gantina?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Ms. Beakey, the vote, we're voting on whether or not to hold the August meeting by Zoom.
Yes.
All right, well, I'm a no, but I think the motion carried. So we have a motion to hold the August meeting by Zoom. All right, any other business by any of the commissioners? You know what, an interesting thing, I was up at the Orion Township Planning Commission. They have a little habit. I'm not going to say we should do this, but I thought it was interesting. At the end of the meeting, they went around and everybody said something. It was kind of interesting, but I don't have anything to say right now except I want to call for the motion to adjourn. But if anybody does want to say something,
Speak now
speak
or
now.
hold your peace.
You mean like I wish it would stop raining?
You could say that.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Beakey, do you have any final comments for the record?
Appreciate all of your patience with having me on the phone. Okay, that's all.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to, Commissioner Douglas, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, nothing from me. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Support.
All right. Call for the vote. I'll do a roll call style. Mr. Klooster?
Yes.
Mr. Gantina?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Ms. Beakey, we're voting to adjourn.
I feel like I should say no just as a joke, but yes.
Easy to
Thank
say.
you. And I'm a yes. We're adjourned for the evening. Thank you very much.
You're out voting.